this hat. I know you haven't seen me in it before, but it's winter, it's cold, I live in a basement, so you'll probably be seeing a lot more of this hat. I tried to make it look cute in some way. So anyway, let's get right into it. I'm going to be drinking a non-alcoholic ginger beer, but it's a Fever Tree ginger beer. I love Fever Tree ginger beer. It's the only kind that I like. Uh-oh, is this a twist off? I don't think it is. Okay, sugar snaps. I'll be right back. Okay, so I didn't actually get up to get a bottle opener. I did the old, college trick, smashing it on the table, and it worked, so. You can see, the ginger sediment in the bottom there. Anyway, I'm filming at almost 8 o'clock, which is rare for me, but a special occasion, So you might hear some noises like that, but hopefully I'll be able to edit them out. Anyway, without further ado, what I am doing for this 2,000 subscriber thank you celebration is for any of my new subscribers who've tried to watch some of my older videos. You can tell how bad the sound quality was because I was just using a little microphone that was attached to my headphones. Can you guys hear me or not? So I wanted to revisit the first true crime case that I ever did in July, not that long ago, but as I was looking over the notes, I realized, wow, number one, I've come a long way in how I research and kind of talk about these cases, because the notes that I had for this case had no detail at all, and I think the original video was maybe 15 minutes long or so. So for this telling of the Marie Adler case, I referenced a much better article, one that was done by ProPublica and the Marshall Project, called An Unbelievable Story of Rape. And the reason that I chose this case as my first case was because I had just watched the Netflix series called Unbelievable, and I was just totally floored by the story, and I was just inspired to look up if it actually happened, if it happened the way that they said it did, and I just I could not believe it. So I did some research, I posted the video, and I got some good feedback on it, and it had the most views that I'd ever had. So I was like, okay, maybe people like true crime, maybe they like true crime and ASMR. I like ASMR, I like true crime, let's do this thing. And now here we are, 2,000 subscribers later. So thank you for that. But yeah, let's get right into it. So in 2008, Marie Adler was living in a new place. She wanted to get a new start on her life. This was in Linwood, Washington. She was finally 18, and she was able to start transitioning out of the foster care system. She was accepted into a program called Project Ladder, which was designed to help young adults transition from the foster care system to living on their own. she had struggled a lot growing up. Her foster homes were not the nicest homes. Her mother was barely around. She only met her biological father one time. She was often left in the care of her mother's boyfriends who were not equipped to take care of children. She had been physically abused, sexually abused, emotionally abused. By the age of 8, she was already on a handful of antidepressant medication, anti-anxiety, just all kinds of psychiatric medicine that really probably shouldn't have been given to an 8-year-old. At one point, when she first entered high school, she thought that she would be adopted, which was really exciting for her. But last minute, that fell through. So she had just had a really hard life, and nothing had come easy for her. So she had hoped that all of that was behind her now, and that she could move on with her life, despite hoping that this would be a new start for her. After only a short time in her new apartment, someone had broken in. Not only had someone broken in, but they had attacked her. He raped her. He bound her and gagged her, and she remembered flashes of light, as if like he had been taking pictures of her or recording what was happening. So the next morning, she called her former foster mother, bawling, just crying, and told her what happened. Her foster mother told her that she should report it to the police, of course, so, because that's what you do when you're attacked, right? You report it to the police. So she went to the police station, and you would assume that when you're reporting a crime such as this to the police, that they would treat you with empathy, that they would be sympathetic, they would be kind, they'd be warm, open, they would be asking you questions, trying to help you, possibly even supplying you with a counseling or counselor, or a social worker or something along those lines. So Marie was reporting this crime after she had spent the night earlier in the hospital, getting swabbed, getting a rape kit, things of that nature. So she was exhausted. She had very little sleep. Something very dramatic had happened to her, and it wasn't the first dramatic thing that had happened to her in her life. So she starts telling the police her story, and the police listen, they take notes, they do what you would think the police would do, but then they ask her to tell her story again. So she tells her story again, then they ask her to tell her story again. So they're basically having her repeat her story over and over again to find inconsistencies in the story, to see if she's lying. And that should not be the first thing that you're trying to do when someone is reporting a rape or an assault or a burglary or anything. You shouldn't be trying to find inconsistencies in the victim's story unless you have reason to do so. The only possible reason that I could think of, which isn't a reason at all, is just that she had had a troubled childhood, that she had been in the foster care system, and if that was their reason for doing that, then that's she realized that these men were not going to help her figure out who had done this to her or protect any other women that he might do this to in the future. So she gets back to her apartment. I'm not sure what time, but either that day or the next day, her and her ex-foster mom go to get her some new bedding, get her some new things for the apartment. And her foster mom is noticing that she's not acting as if something terrible had happened to her. She's acting normal, and she wants to get the same bedding that she had before. She gets upset when they don't have it, and her foster mom is like, why would you want to sleep in the same bedding that you were just raped in? So her foster mom took these actions to mean that Marie was probably lying about the rape. The foster mom believed that a rape victim should act in a certain way, and Marie was not acting in that way. So the foster mom, unbeknownst to Marie, went to the police station and told them, you know what, I think Marie might be lying because she tends to lie to try to get attention. Again, Marie did not know that this was happening. She didn't know that her foster mom went to tell the police this. And about a week later, Marie decided, okay, I know this happened to me, despite the fact that these police officers didn't believe me. I'm going to go tell them now that they should believe me because this actually happened to me. So she goes back to try to tell them that what she was telling them before was true. And they become impatient with her, and they tell her, okay, well, then we're going to put you on a lie detector test. And just so you know, if you fail, then you're going to lose your housing because we are going to charge you with misdemeanor of false reporting. So this freaks her out. She's like, well, what if I fail this lie detector test? So she says, well, okay, fine, then never mind. I'm just gonna go try to get on with my life because I'm obviously not getting anywhere with you guys, and I don't want to risk my new living situation. So she leaves the police station, and then shortly thereafter, she finds out that she's being charged with a gross misdemeanor for filing a false police report, which is punishable by up to a year in jail. So at this point, not only was she raped, not only did no one really believe her, but now they were taking her to court. Her case also garnered media attention because it was such a rare thing for a police department to file this against a defendant, let alone against an 18-year-old girl. But people in the media and people watching the report didn't have sympathy for Marie. They thought she was a liar, and they didn't understand why she would lie. So this poor girl is just getting re-traumatized over and over again. So her public defender decided that they should take a deal, and she just wanted it over with, so she took a deal. She was put on probation, she was charged $500, and she was ordered to seek mental health counseling for lying. She ended up losing her housing because of her probation. She lost her job. She lost a bunch of friends who thought she was a liar. Tracy Galbraith is responding to the scene of a crime that had been reported by a 26-year-old woman. The victim was an engineering student on winter break. The night before, she had been alone in her apartment, just binge watching Desperate Housewives. And she went to sleep. At around 8 a.m. the next morning, she woke up to a man who had jumped on her back. And he said, "Don't scream, don't call, or I'll shoot you." She said that he documented the assault with a digital camera, threatened to post the pictures online if she contacted police, and afterward he told her to go take a shower and not to come out until he was gone. By the time she exited the shower and the bathroom, all of her bedding was gone and he was gone. The victim, and she wasn't named, so I don't have any of the names of any of the other victims. I believe that they wanted to be kept confidential. So she tried really hard during the attack to remember every little detail that she could. Part of that, I believe, was a coping mechanism. Part of it might just have been the way that her mind worked. So she remembered specifically that this man had a birthmark on his, I believe it was his left calf. It was like the size of an egg. So she remembered that. Also, there were some other things that she remembered. She remembered a detail that the camera was a pink digital camera, and that will be important later. So based on what Detective Galbraith found, she felt that this man had done this before, and he was practiced, and he was good at it, and he was good at not leaving DNA and not leaving any trace. So it became her mission to figure out who else he had done this to and to find him. After sending the victim to the hospital for a rape kit and examination, Galbraith examined the scene of the crime. The following is from the article that I referenced before. It paints like a really good picture of what was going on at the house. The writing is really well done. So it says, a half-dozen officers and technicians were now at work. They were knocking on neighbors' doors, snapping photographs in the apartment, digging through garbage bins, swabbing the walls, the windows, everywhere for DNA. In the snow, they found a trail of footprints leading to and from the back of the apartment through an empty field. They spray painted the prints fluorescent orange to make them stand out. Then they took pictures. It was not much, but it was something. One officer suggested a bathroom break, and Galbraith insisted just keep working. As she headed home that night, Galbraith's mind raced. Who is this guy, she asked herself. How am I going to find him? Galbraith your victim, Galbraith said. But I don't think that's the right standpoint. I think it's listen to your victim and then corroborate or refute based on how things go. Luckily, her husband was also a police officer from another department, and after telling him what happened with the case she was working on, he said, "Call my department first thing in the morning because we have a very similar case." So she did, and she also contacted other detectives. She got in touch with Detective Edna Hendershot, who had a similar report 5 months prior in August 2010. The victim then was a 59-year-old woman who reported being attacked by a man who wore a black mask. He tied her hands, stole her pink digital camera, took pictures of her, and then forced her to take a shower. She also remembered a case in October of 2009 where a 65-year-old woman had reported a very similar attack. The article states that cops can be protective about their cases, fearing that information could be leaked that would jeopardize their investigations. They often don't know about or fail to use an FBI database created years ago to help catch repeat offenders. Between 1/4 and 2/3 of rapists are serial attackers, studies show. So that is something that we have talked about in these videos so much. The fact that even neighboring jurisdictions within the same state don't communicate to each other about cases and are often haphazard about entering information into the FBI database. And this is a perfect example where if someone had just done this, or if a couple precincts had done this, less women would have been hurt. So, as time passed, their cases were still cold, so they decided to widen their scope. They turned up an incident in Lakewood, Colorado that occurred about a month before the rape in Westminster. At the time, the police thought it was a failed burglary attempt, and in reality, it was a failed rape attempt. A 46-year-old woman had been attacked in her home by a man with a knife and a black mask. He tried to tie her hands, but she ended up jumping out of her window, breaking her ribs and puncturing a lung. After re-examining the crime scene evidence there, it seemed that there were glove marks and shoe prints that matched the scenes of the other crime. So by the end of January 2011, they had connected 4 rapes across Denver's suburbs. So we have Aurora, Colorado was where the trail started on October 4th, 2009, with a 65-year-old woman. Then 9 months later, and 22 miles to the west, when the rapist attacked the artist in Lakewood. A month after that, there was a 59-year-old woman in Westminster, Colorado. And then finally, January 2011 was the attack in Golden, Colorado of the 26-year-old woman. They tried to use DNA to figure out who the assailant was, but he was very, very careful about leaving his DNA around. So careful that they thought it possibly could have been a police officer who was committing these crimes. He used wet wipes to clean up his semen. He ordered the women to shower. He often took cells or like touch DNA, and they tested that, and they were able to figure out that it was one family lineage, but they were not able to figure out one individual. They did finally catch a break on the white pickup truck. However, 3 weeks before the attempted rape in Lakewood, a woman had called in to report a suspicious white truck parked on the street with a man inside. It was a 1993 white Mazda, and it was registered to a Lakewood man named Mark Patrick O'Leary. O'Leary had no criminal record. He had served in the army, which could account for how he was so meticulous and careful at his crime scenes. He was not a registered sex offender, but they did find that he had purchased a pornography site in September 2008. Ultimately, police really needed DNA, so they actually went to his house and they saw who they thought was him and a woman leave the house, so they followed him. But when police thought that the house was empty, someone came to the door, and it ended up being Mark O'Leary himself. And the person who had left was Michael O'Leary, his brother. So like I said, their DNA, the DNA that they had was just a familial match, so it could have been either one of the brothers. So what they needed to figure out was who had the birthmark on their shin, or not their shin, their calf. And thanks to a search warrant, they finally were able to get in the house, and the detective asked Mark to pull up his pant leg, and there we go. There's your birthmark. So they were finally able to arrest Mark O'Leary. They seized his computer, and they found a folder containing photos of all of his victims. One of the photos was that of Marie Adler, and the only way that they knew this was her was because he had taken her picture and had put her ID on her chest and took the picture with her ID in it to try to scare her from telling the police, saying that he would release this photograph if she went to the police. Little did he know the police wouldn't believe her anyway. They alerted Linwood authorities, and the police department there put their foot in their mouth. I think that's the right saying. They apologized profusely to her. They refunded her $500 from the fine that she had to pay, which was ridiculous. She actually ended up suing them, and they settled on $150,000, even though she easily could have gotten more. And the police who handled her case were never reprimanded in any way, or punished, or fired. This is from the article. O'Leary pleaded guilty to 28 counts of rape and associated felonies in Colorado. On December 9th, 2011, almost a year after his arrest, O'Leary was sentenced to 327 and a half years in prison for the Colorado attacks, the maximum allowed by law. He is currently housed in the Sterling Correctional Facility in the barren, remote northeastern research. And she drives an 18-wheeler, which I think is so badass and takes a lot of guts. And my heart goes out to her for everything that she's been through and like how strong she was. And it just makes me think of all of the women and the victims of abuse, victims of rape,